Hello and welcome to another Conscious Nugget. And I bet you didn't think that I would put out another one of this as soon as this, but here we are. Today I want to talk about gaslighting. Now, gaslighting is a process or behavior, a communications behavior mostly, that causes someone to doubt their own beliefs, thinking and perception to the point of questioning their own sanity. Okay, now the term gaslighting has become quite well known and popular. 2 years ago in 2018, lots of articles popping up explaining what it is, and it was the first time that I actually had heard of the term, to be honest, 2 years ago. Now you might know it, you might have heard of it or not, you might sort of understand what it means, but how confident do you feel to truly detect it when it's happening? I tell you why I want to talk about gaslighting in particular, and why I think that it's of particular relevance right now in our current times with the lockdown happening. There are two main reasons, okay? Number one, people are stuck with people at home that they usually wouldn't spend as much time with. Number two, lockdown dating. All those dating apps have found a huge increase in activity, lots of new profiles, and the reason is quite simple. In times of isolation, there is an increased desire for connection. But here's the thing. In a time like this, where we all feel more vulnerable than usually, that also means at the same time that we are more susceptible to something like gaslighting. And when we have an increased desire for connection on the one hand, our radar for unhealthy dynamics on the other hand is probably not as well functioning compared to normal circumstances. So I have had a recent encounter a few days ago with someone I was getting to know, and it was actually quite rattling, even disturbing. And I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I then realized that it was because there had been certain elements of gaslighting at play. So today, with this video, I want to increase awareness around gaslighting and get you to walk away with a much clearer idea of what it is, and also feeling more confident that you're able to recognize it when it's happening. Because it can be quite subtle in the early stages. It's not necessarily that obvious unless you know what you're looking for. And it's important to be able to detect that sort of toxic, abusive and manipulative communications behavior in order to prevent damage to your health, to your mental health and your well-being. And whether that is in a dating context or in a work context, where gaslighting tends to happen a lot as part of bullying. And I'll give you an example about that later on as well. So, what exactly does gaslighting entail then? Now, first of all, it's important to understand that anyone is susceptible to gaslighting, okay? Yes, it's true that when people have lower levels of self-esteem, that they might be at higher risk of falling victim to gaslighting. But having said that, it is true that anyone can be susceptible to gaslighting, even people with high levels of self-awareness and good levels of self-esteem. It's a little bit what I said earlier about knowing what you're looking for. If you don't, anyone can get caught up in those dynamics. Okay? Now, gaslighting is really a form of a mind game, playing mind games, and it's about invalidating your experience, right? But not just that. The gaslighter doesn't stop at invalidating your experience. The ultimate aim is that you yourself question your capacity to trust your own experience in the first place. Okay? And when I say experience, I mean what you see and perceive and hear, but also how you feel. And that's the real insidious aspect of it. When you start to even question if there's enough grounds for you to feel what you feel, and you're no longer sure if you're just plain crazy. Okay, so I'm going to use a few examples from that encounter I recently had to exemplify a few techniques that are part of gaslighting. Number one is backtracking. So I've had 3 conversations with this particular individual, and each time I was left confused in terms of where they stood with regards to different things. And yeah, so I realized that actually throughout the conversation, what had happened is that there had been contradictions, but usually they would come to a point where they would put things forward in a way that was saying, but I was saying this all along from the very beginning, even though there had been contradictions before. And I started to wonder, okay, did I just misunderstand? You know, that sort of thing. Backtracking, going back on what someone says. Then the second one is trivialising. So taking away importance from your feelings, your thoughts and beliefs. I called something out and mentioned how something had not really sat right with me, and explained why, and asked an open question to clarify how that person had actually meant that. And their approach was interesting because I couldn't get a straight answer to begin with. Then they were saying that initially that's not what they meant, but then after they did, but even if they had in the very first place, so what? Big deal. Those were the exact words, okay? So what? Big deal. So this is obviously quite dismissive, and that's the trivializing part. Only you get to decide what's a big deal to you, no one else. What this message carries really is, it implies that your assessment of something is wrong. Why would someone who's actually sane give this that much importance, is what that statement is saying. And that is gaslighting. Okay. Number 3, diverting. So this is about moving away from the topic at hand and starting to question the validity of your thoughts and statements that you're putting forward. So this person had said things like that I was being unrealistic, or starting to turn things around and stating that I had so far viewed everything in a negative light that they had said and done, which is a big generalization. Of course, you might spot that. So it's those things that move away from the topic at hand and paint you in a negative light, in a light that is about questioning your judgment, your ability to accurately judge situations. Okay. Finally, there was this thing around stating something that I had just said as if it was something new that was stated for the first time. And you go like, I just said that. And I bet that a lot of women who are watching this right now are familiar with this experience at work, in the boardroom, during a team meeting, when more often than not a man comes up with something that the woman had just actually literally said, and you go, wait a minute, I have just said that. You're acting as if it's your idea, as if I hadn't. So this is also in part a way of gaslighting. there is one final important ingredient to gaslighting. If you think about it, if someone behaves in those ways constantly, it would be a bit obvious and we would probably reject them rather quickly. But actually, the insidious thing is that part of gaslighting is that the gaslighter in between acts pleasantly, okay? Just to seed even more confusion and doubts about your assessment of them, okay? This behavior, gaslighting, is, like I said before, abusive, manipulative and toxic, and often it's done by narcissists, but not exclusively, okay? And it is done for people to regain a sense of control and that they're in charge. There's just a side note to explain, but that does not take away the negative impact and harmful consequences on someone's well-being, and that it's something that it cannot be condoned and something to watch out for and that you want to protect yourself from, right? Now, you might ask yourself though, okay, how do you know if something is gaslighting, or if you just need to be a bit more, question something about yourself? Because obviously we all want to be self-aware and also sometimes examine our own behaviors and motives and thoughts patterns. So basically the question is, how do you know if it's them or you, right? In order to answer that, look for patterns. And I'm not saying you have to be for a long time with that person or put up with them for a long time in whatever context. I had 3 conversations with this particular individual and I was able to establish a pattern across these 3 encounters in terms of the backtracking, etc. Okay? Afterwards, not as I was in it, but by reflecting afterwards. Look for patterns, but also ask yourself, okay, do you have that level of self-doubt only ever when you interact with them? Think about it. If there was something that you really needed to become aware of in terms of a shortcoming in your personality, it's probably something that would have come up with other people as well, that they would have reflected back to you as well. But if it only ever comes up with this one person, it's likely that there is something else at play here, like gaslighting. Okay? Also, trust your gut. If something feels off, like it was in my case, it's probably because there is. And finally, look for phrases like, "You're too sensitive," "Calm down," "Big deal." I never said that. That's your interpretation of things. You're remembering that wrongly, etc. Okay? You can find lots of examples online. Now, you might also wonder, how can you differentiate between healthy disagreement and gaslighting being at play? Now, there's a difference between someone disagreeing with your view and someone negating your experience. Okay, especially your feelings. You own your feelings. No one can tell you how to feel or how much importance to place on something. Okay? Quick work example. Say you spoke to your boss and you agreed that they would give you an opportunity to work on a particular kind of task when that comes up next, because you wanted to develop in that direction. But then you see that actually another colleague of yours has gotten that exact opportunity that you thought you agreed with your boss you were going to get. So you speak with them about it and say, well, remember what we agreed? So how come this is happening? And if they then go, I never promised you anything, you remember that wrongly, that's gaslighting. If, however, they say, look, I know what we agreed, I know what I said and I stand by it, however, this is not the kind of opportunity that falls into that category. Okay, that's different. The premise of that is different because there has been an affirming of your reading of a previous interaction, And now there is a basis to discuss and see if you disagree or agree that that opportunity is actually right or not right. Now, I want you to remember that in any case, you own your feelings. You are the architect of your reality. You don't need anyone to validate your reality. I want you to trust your gut. I want you to trust your own ability to discern. And I hope that everything you've heard in this video will have helped with that. And that now when you hear certain phrases, for example, the ones I mentioned earlier and other ones, that you have alarm bells ringing and that you can see through certain communication behavior. Now, if you have established that gaslighting has been at play, my advice to you would be run, okay? If possible, in whatever context, early dating, for sure, run for miles. If it's happening at work, you might need to consider speaking to HR. If after watching this, you realize that you have been gaslit for a while as part of a relationship in your life, whether that's a romantic one or another one, then my advice to you would still be run, okay? Because your mental health is too precious, okay? If you're now exploring the idea of bringing to the gaslighter's attention what it is they're doing, some do it consciously, some don't. However, just know that if you're hoping that they will change once they are made aware, likelihood is very, very small, okay? Especially if it's an ask by the person that they have been gaslighting. Not likely to happen, okay? Also, you would need a very strong sense of self to see that through, which you're unlikely to have if you have been a victim of gaslighting for a while. So the best thing you can do is to remove yourself from the situation. Now, if you feel you are trapped in an abusive relationship, please know it's not your fault and there is lots of help out there. And I'll put a few organizations where you can find support under this video as well. I will also put a list of signs of gaslighting under the video, okay? Now, if this has been helpful, please let me know, leave a comment, and please share, because I really feel strongly about this being more common knowledge so that we are all better equipped when we communicate with each other. And subscribe to Conscious Nuggets. Hopefully see you soon again. Take care.